You ever subscribe to 20 different newsletters just because you didn't want to miss anything? Ended up reading none. That was me. Every morning I would just look at these and say, I'll skim these later. I was missing important updates because I was drowning in information, good information. So I built an automation. My emails sends it to me via message. I build systems that save people time. When something overwhelms me, I automate it so future me does not have to deal with it. And that instinct comes from over 15 years of corporate ops and special projects experience, where efficiency was not optional. Newsletter overload is a real productivity killer. You want to stay current in your niche, but the reality looks like 30 saved emails, 12 bookmarked links, 6 open tabs that you'll read this weekend, and no action ever gets taken. Here's the system I built. Every morning, 5 a.m., Gmail fetches the newest AI newsletter. And it then extracts the text and the links and saves them to this sheet. ChatGPT then identifies 1 to 3 relevant stories from each one and scores the relevance. It then goes ahead and builds a clean digest that Slack sends me every morning as one single message, and it has everything worth reading. That's it. No more scrolling, no more filtering, 0 missed updates. Now I'm going to show you how this works step by step. So you can build this for your niche: AI, fitness, real estate, crypto, marketing. This works everywhere. All right, first thing we're going to add is a trigger that runs on schedule. You're going to set this up however you want, but for this example, we'll use 1 day and it will trigger at 5 a.m. Now what we're going to add here is an edit field section, and this is where you're going to input the specific senders that you want to be part of this. Click on add field. We're going to call this source newsletters. Then in the value, we're going to add, and then we're going to change this from string to array because it's a list. Then for value, we have to write this in a notation that email understands. So I'm just going to paste this in here, and I'm going to expand this so you can see. The important thing here is adding this or operator in between each of the email address of the newsletters. You can see here I have regular newsletters and I have some Substacks, but this is going to be important for later. Now, once we're done with that, we go back here. Next thing we're going to add is the Gmail. Now, I already have my Gmail credentials saved to an 8N, so if you haven't done that, we'll get you a tutorial on how that gets done. So this all stays the same. What we want to change is the limit. So we'll probably do for this example 5, but you can change this to any. I will toggle off this simplify option that's normally by default. And the important thing here is we're add this filter. So what we're going to do is do a search filter, and then we will do from. Then I'm going to want to execute the previous node so that I can get this data. One important thing to do here in this edit fields node is to add the option to ignore type conversion errors. Now that we have the source newsletters field here available, we will drag this down right here next to from. Basically make sure that it's picking up the newest ones from a day ago. Now, here's something that is not necessarily needed, but it is something that I prefer because it'll make it easier for using this information for other things. I'm going to be to add a Google Sheets node that will then add this information that it's pulled into a sheet. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a function node here. And the reason for that is it's going to take the plain text and links from the HTML body, because there's some issues where newsletters like hiding useful content inside of stylized sections. So this takes care of that, so we're not missing anything. We're going to save all of this into a Google Sheet, and this is going to act like a temporary storage layer. It's going to help prevent reprocessing the same email. I already have my Google Sheets account set up. Just have to match up columns. Here is a blank sheet, and we're going to add a couple of headings here. So we're going to have an ID, thread ID, the email the newsletter came from, what the subject is, the date we received it, the raw text body of the newsletter, the raw links that come from each newsletter that are embedded inside. And then we're going to add this processed column, and that's going to be important here to make sure that we're not doubling up on newsletters later on. All right, so what we'll do here is just map everything that came out of our previous function. Easy as drag and drop. Email, subject, body is crawling process. So this has already been done by our previous code. It's in there, and it will automatically append this variable to say that this newsletter has not been processed because it's brand new. Step real just to pull everything. One thing we'll add here is a minimize API calls. Execute this step. All right. So now if we were to jump into our sheet, you can see that it clearly added what we were. Perfect. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add another Google Sheets node. Select get row. I'm going to select sheet. Then we're also going to put in process. Value says no. Like that, we're only pulling the ones that have not been processed yet. Perfect. Alrighty, here comes the bread and butter. This is going to be this is the system prompt that we're going to add that tells ChatGPT what matters. Select which model. We're going to go fairly inexpensive one mini, and we're going to change this to the system prompt. Change this to expression because it's easier to put this in here. Walk through this real quick. So establishing its role in your niche newsletter summarizer. Its job is to read one newsletter email at a time, decide if it contains anything useful for my audience, which are creators, solopreneurs, side hustlers, small teams who care about AI automation and smarter workflow. If it does, extract the most useful stories as a structured JSON. Now I give it the output goals. I will read these in Slack as a daily digest so that I can scan all the new newsletters without opening each one. I want a story level summaries, not full rewrites. I do not need action steps or coaching for this workflow, only some relevance. This is going to be key to make sure that you only get what you need. Rate how useful the entire email is for my interests on a scale from 0 to 100. 0 to 30, not useful or off topic. 31 to 64, somewhat related but weak or generic. 65 to 100, strong, relevant, and worth highlight. Now, stories, items. A story is a discrete section, article, update, or post inside this newsletter. Here I tell it focus on parts about AI, or you can change this to whatever your niche is. But for me, it's AI, automation, tools, workflows, business strategy, creator economy, or small business operations. I also tell it to ignore intros, personal life updates, job boards, sponsorship blurbs, unsubscribe text, or any type of generic fluff. So for each email, I wanted to extract 1 to 3 of the strongest stories. Each story write title, short, clear, non-clickbait headline, summary, paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences that gives me the core idea, main points. Content type, one of either news, how-to, case study, tool, opinion, or friend, miscellaneous. The original link or a URL if it's present in the story, or just blank if there is no direct link. And then I want to tag it because I want to see trends when it comes. So just tag it to the short tags in lower snake case. For example, AI underscore agents, workflow, small underscore business. No polish plain English, no hype, no instructions like you should do X in the summarizer. I just want to describe what the story says, not that I have to do anything. Do not talk about the newsletter in summaries, just talk about the idea. And then I give it a structure that I want it to output. And this is important, especially when you want this to come out pretty organized. You want to give it specific sections to output. So the first thing I want is the relevance score. Then I want the different items. It's going to have one of each for each story that I find. So it's going to have a title, summary, content type, the original link, and tags. And then this one last bit is output only valid JSON in exactly this shape, no markdown, no extra text, no code fences. So I literally just want to see this as the output. Now keep in mind, this is going to take a while because it is going through each one of those emails. So just pay close attention, especially if you are doing more than 5 newsletters. So to summarize, this system prompt tells ChatGPT who the audience is, what types of topics are useful, what to ignore, ads, intros, or job boards, and the output required, which is the JSON with the title, summary, links, and tags. The next thing we're going to add here is another code node to kind of clean up the response so that the next node doesn't break, essentially. And I'm also going to add in parallel here another Google Sheets, because now I want to indicate that the ID that I'm going to use to match this one right here, I'm actually going to remove these. I don't need it for this step, and I'm just going to leave processed. And what I'm going to do here is manually type yes. So now whenever this runs again, it is going to see the yes, and it is going to ignore those in that sheet. All right, now that we've cleaned up output from the AI, we're going to add another function node. This is going to do is going to sort the best stories by relevance and then format the Slack message. Here is the part where it starts the Slack. I also have here failover just in case there are relevant items. And the final piece of this is going to be the Slack. Go ahead, Slack, tell it to send the message. Tell it to send it to your user, send it to me, and then simple text message. Then what we're going to do for the message text is literally grab this output from our code Slack text and just drop it in right there. So now every morning I'll open up Slack and boom, clean list all stories that are only important to me. This saves me 2 to 3 hours per week that I was spending reading, filtering, and bookmarking. The industry changes daily and newsletters are your niche might not move that fast, so your time save might be different, but the pattern is the same. Less noise, more signal. Once the system is running, you can expand this to auto draft your own newsletter, auto suggest some content topics, suggest some carousel scripts, push summaries, Notion or Airtable, tag topics for audience research, and identify trends over time. If you do this, this changes it from being a digest and now it becomes a research assistant. If you want to use an automation like this in your own business, or my newsletter, shows simple workflows that you can implement. And I also break down the AI news that you're seeing everywhere into something digestible, non-technical, and practical for business use. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.